MMO worlds feel different compared to single-player game worlds, don't they? There's something about the scale of them that is just unmatched. The environments are so expansive, and you feel like a speck of dust on them. The game we're visiting today is an MMO. But wait, this doesn't look like an MMO. Let me check the Wikipedia page real quick. Right there, see? Massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Wait a second. What's that right there? Fictional? Yes, this game is a fully offline single-player game with the setting of an MMO. And unfortunately, despite the game within a game being an MMO, it doesn't have the scale that I love so much about most actual MMOs. But we'll still look at it and see in what ways they did convey this as an MMO world. And along the way, we'll notice some pretty interesting details and visit some really cool spots. Welcome to Video Game World Tours, and this is .hackgu Volume 1. Let's visit the main town of the game, Mackinac. You spawn in this circular room. A moat surrounds the center platform with some orange light peering in through the windows. Also, some caustics on the walls from the water. I'm a sucker for caustics in games. They improve the vibe so much to me. This kinda reminds me of that one Aetheryte room in Ul'dah in Final Fantasy XIV. Even if the details aren't 100% the same, it still evokes feelings of it for me. I almost did my world tour nitpicking thing where I'm like, excuse me sauce, if you fell in the water, how would you get out? There's no steps or ladder leading to the platform. Didn't the developers of this game think of that? But, there's layers to this. There's invisible walls, so you can't fall in. That's a game-ism. But in the real world, invisible walls aren't a thing, so you'd fall right in. Usually those are the only two layers when analyzing a game world for realism. There's the game created to be perceived as realistic by the developers, and the world as it would actually exist. But there's another with this game. Between those two layers is the MMO as it exists in this world. It's kinda hard to explain, but look at it like this. Maybe CyberConnect 2, the actual real-life developers of .hackgu, realized there'd be no way for a person to get out of this pool of water if Mackinac was a real place. But then they decided not to add one, because the fictional developers of The World, the name of the in-game MMO, wouldn't think of it. I'm not necessarily saying that's the case, but hopefully that illustrates the layers to this world as I see it. I don't know if that line of thought will come up much throughout this video, it's just an interesting observation I stumbled onto. Maybe keep it in the back of your mind as we look at the rest of the spots in the game. I love the long bridge here. I mean, it's annoying from a gameplay perspective, but it's aesthetic. This whole scene is aesthetic. The large body of water that stretches out underneath you, the buildings in the distance, the super warm lighting. It's so cozy. You know me, I love my cozy spots in games. This isn't my favorite in the game though. We'll end the video with that one. I kinda love when play spaces in cities like this are so small. Sorry, spoilers, but this is a PS2 game. You're not going to be seeing environments like you'd see in World of Warcraft. But yeah, look at all those buildings. So many skyscrapers and spires. I can't help but imagine what they'd all look like on the inside. What they'd be for, and just how long it took to build all this. All those details really sell this as a super important city. Just down the path is the town center. Around the fountain are where the player shops are. Specifically, shops owned by guilds. That's kinda cute. Each guild needs to send a player to physically man a stand in the center of town where they can peddle their wares to passersby. Though the small part of my brain that thinks like a game designer here can't help but notice a big problem. How would this work for more than a couple of guilds? You can see a few stands, but what if more wanted to set up shop? And not just a dozen or so, but hundreds. Thousands, maybe. The world is a super popular game in-universe. There has to be more than 3 guilds that want to set up shop in the main town here. Funnily enough, the real developers did consider that in another aspect by having the guild halls be instanced. It's not like this building is the guild hall of Raven. It's all the guild halls, and you're teleported to the right one. If this were a real MMO, these 3 stands wouldn't fly. There'd be like 20,000 guilds trying to sell stuff, and you'd have no way to efficiently browse them all. That's why systems like auction houses came about. It's fine, no biggie. What is a biggie though, is something I noticed peculiar about these buildings. Do you see anything? Do you see a lack of something? There's no doors. Despite there being all these buildings, there are literally no doors in the town center. And I did a lot of walking around the building faces. There are no entrances for a good long while. The first door you encounter on the eastern path is right here, all this distance between it and the building at the town center. You go in and it's just a tiny room. Look, you wanted that. I dig the nature theme. There's probably less than a half dozen non-interactable doors. Like this building, you can't go in there. But the exterior is nice. And I guess this whole fountain area is too. It's chill. Plus you can go right up to the railing and gaze out upon the sea to the south. The shimmering of the sun on the water is a nice touch. Honestly, that's about it for Mackinac. It's just a lot of winding paths with some shops dotted around. I guess there is this dock. It's near the mercenary district, which is home to some shops and the guild halls. I don't think the story ever brought me here, but I did skip out on some side quests, so maybe one of those did. It's kinda spooky looking into the water below. It seems really deep. I'm looking at the corner of the building there and it just seems to disappear into a void below. Maybe there isn't a bottom to this pool. If you were to fall in, maybe you'd never hit the bottom. Maybe it's best there's all these invisible walls. This is where you come to talk with NPCs and mingle, but when you want to battle, you'll be heading to the field areas. These are randomly generated maps decorated with preset themes. I really hated this cave one, which is weird because I usually like this aesthetic in games. I guess this room looks alright, with all the waterfalls surrounding you, and the way the water flows behind those rocks, continuing on for God knows how long. It's kinda surreal. But it's just so gray and boring, it started to wear on me after a while. This theme is my favorite though. I love the bright blue sky and the green grass. It's a nice contrast to the city bathed in orange that is Mackinac. It kinda reminds me of Xenoblade Chronicles almost, like the Fallen Arm, though that area didn't have land masses in the distance. That big thing is definitely Xenoblade-esque. Yeah, that's it for the field areas. There aren't a whole lot in this game, and even though this is my favorite, I still did get a bit bored of seeing it. But still, it's cool. Next up is another town, if you could really call it that. Lumina Cloth. I mean, it is a beautiful and expansive city, but all you can explore is this little platform. This kinda reminds me of the city you see in the beginning of Final Fantasy X. Maybe you can tell from how vague I'm being there, but I haven't played more than like 20 minutes of that game. I'm gonna beat it one of these days, and you bet your ass I'll make videos on it. Anyway, cool city. Literally cool. It embraces cool colors in contrast to how Mackinac embraces warm colors. These are the only two towns in the game, so they serve each other well in that way. If you go through the door to the south, you'll find yourself in Icolo's Guild Hall. Very prestigious in here. All the banners on the walls, the red carpet surrounding the circular shallow pit in the middle of the room, it conveys such a gravitas. And there's a hallway behind this banner. Come on, I obviously see it, just let me sneak past. No fun allowed, I guess. Going back outside, we can explore the other side of this rooftop platform thing. Up these steps is the main reason why you're in Lumina Cloth. You can register for the arena and fight in tournaments at the front desk here. Before every fight, you're placed in this little room where you can change around your equipment and check your enemy's level. It's a cozy little space. Kinda just want to hang out in here instead of fighting. You think anyone in the audience would be mad if I did that? Oh, and something of note at the front desk. There's these warp points on both sides of it. I remember being confused when I saw them because why would you need to warp in this super small zone? Interacting with it revealed that this one is for spectators to take their seat in the arena, and this one is for participants to take to the proverbial backstage to get ready for the fight. I thought that was neat. Some actual consideration for how this would work in-world. Props to the level designers. Just to the side of the steps that lead up to the area registration are some steps leading downwards. Here we go. We're going off the beaten path now. Huh. I wonder what's in all these boxes. There's a good amount of them, but I can't imagine what they'd want to be storing out in the open, and so close to the very public arena entrance. I have genuinely no guesses. I'm stumped. Down and around the bend is a spot where you'll have a story beat or two. I really like this place. Something about its secluded nature in a super popular city makes it special. I'm always fond of spots like that. There's this decorative floor pattern as well as some trees planted. Even though there might not be any benches or chairs to sit on in this spot, I'd still like to hang out here myself, if only for a moment. What's down here? Ah, the black market. I guess I shouldn't be surprised they put something of note at the end of this somewhat long path. Just kinda taking in the scenery again, imagining what the interiors of all those buildings are like. Such a nice city. There are a handful of areas you can visit that aren't really towns, but aren't really field areas either. They're separated from both, but you can't do any fighting in them. Big guilds in this game get whole zones dedicated to just them. The Kestrel Guild has theirs set up as some desert ruins. It's overlooking a canyon that stretches pretty far into the distance. This must be pretty high up, considering the clouds are floating by. That's weird. Heading between these crumbled pillars and up the steps, you arrive in what looks like a pretty important area. Along the walls are a good amount of passages that fade to darkness. Where do all these go? Is there some big internal structure to this guild hall that you could access if you were able to go down there? And of course, there's the throne up there. Behind it is another passageway that you can't go down. Huh, there's a cute little carving on the back of the throne. Neat. I can imagine Gabi sitting up here and talking to a crowd standing below. I guess there already is a little bit of a crowd. I could imagine being one of these people, just hanging out in my guild hall talking with friends. I like that they captured the social side of MMOs in this game by having people stand around and talk. The Moontrees Clan Hall is more elegant, graceful. You can actually go inside this clan hall. I like it, I like it. Exquisite waiting room. Oh man, another long hall I can't go down. So sad. Though there is one more room to see. If you interact with the warp point, you can teleport to Zelkova's room. Now this is beautiful. This is the type of room I'd have in an MMO like this. Super chill outdoors vibes. Though the moon is absolutely massive. Like, about to crash into the planet massive. I wonder if it has an AI-controlled Dyson sphere inside it. Yes, that is a reference to Roland Emmerich's awful movie Moonfall. No, my joke wasn't funny, and no, I'm not sorry for making the reference in the first place. Moving on. The final spot we're going to look at in this section is the Hulagrans Cathedral. This is where a very important moment takes place during the story. It definitely conveys importance. The architecture, the lighting, the reflection off the floor. Look at how polished that is. It's almost like a mirror, it's so reflective. Such a dignified building. Though the real star of this location is outside. Where do you think this is located? In a city? Maybe hidden away in a forest? Out in the middle of a desert? How about high up in the sky? We are way up there. You can't even see the ground below. There are some landmasses far in the distance, but that's about it. I'm such a big fan of this design trope. There will be nothing for what looks like miles, and then out of nowhere, just a single building or structure. It gives such a weight to the space. Like of all the places this church could have been built, up on top of this lone rock above the clouds is where it had to be put. This is my second favorite spot in the game. I love it. What's my absolute favorite, you might be asking? I'll of course tell you right after a little detour. A detour not to a physical space, but a virtual one. So this game takes place in an MMO, but if you go to the pause menu, you'll notice a log out button. Pressing that logs you out of the game and brings you back to the operating system. They made a whole fake operating system for this game where you can browse news sites, check your emails, and participate in forum threads. I love when games have fake internets. Though, to be honest, the only games I can think of that do this are Grand Theft Auto games and this one right here. Can you think of any others? Just as we did in my GTA 5 tour, we'll spend some time browsing this game's internet and see what there is to find. While you can't really look at a bunch of different websites, the main chunk of this game's written internet content is on the forums. There's a couple of forum threads where people talk about the existence of PvP combat in the game, and I gotta say, it's absolutely hilarious to read this as a RuneScape player. These are quite literally posts I'd read on the old school RuneScape subreddit, where people are having back and forths about PvP in that game. I love how the writers here perfectly captured both sides of the argument and fairly represented it. I think my favorite forum is Apkalu. It's an image board where people can post their artwork and discuss it. It's so adorable seeing all these different pieces drawn in different styles. You get a sense of who these people are just by looking at their art. Some are cute, cool, definitely a couple weird ones. But that's what you'd find on a board like this online, and I love its inclusion. You'll be reading through a lot of emails sent to you by friends. My favorite is from a user named Hokuto. It's this long-winded essay written to someone named Elena. This happened super early in the game, so I thought this was a bit of backstory to the person playing this MMO. They bring up college, their family, and the fact that they're translating an overseas mystery novel. An amateur translator. I dig it. So much meat on this email bone. I was excited to read more from this person and see how their relationship with the player would evolve. Not long after, I receive another email from them saying, "I'm sorry." Huh, apparently that email was meant for someone else. I love that. You never hear from this person again. You don't even get any other emails by accident. This is a one-off incident that doesn't pay off in any way. It's just a genuine mistake. It's like getting a call or text from the wrong number in real life. They just apologize and move on. Such a neat little detail to include. Though my favorite interaction you'll find on the internet here is with one particular user and his arch nemesis. There's one user you can find early on in this game. He has a pretty formal and polite way of talking. He even introduces himself in his message. "Good evening, this is Ohm Rice." That's what this little symbol is, Ohm. Look, I'm not a Greek alphabet guy. I only know it's that because he clarifies later on. And he feels the need to clarify because a user named Cocky Leader comes for him. He calls him Butt Rice, because that symbol kinda looks like a butt. But Ohm Rice doesn't take too kindly to that. He corrects him by spelling out how to pronounce his name. OHM Rice. And this isn't just a one-off interaction. In almost every thread Ohm Rice posts in, across multiple forums, Cocky Leader will always be there to call him Butt Rice. And every time Ohm Rice corrects him, he even gets mad and types grrr. I kinda love that they replicated that specific aspect of internet culture, weirdos following you around wherever you go and replying to you. This just feels cute though. The way it's such a toothless insult to throw at him, and the way Butt Rice gets so worked up every time, how he physically types him growling in anger. It's adorable. These two are a great pair. Alright, back to the glorious polygonal spaces. As I promised, we're going to close out this video by looking at my favorite spot in the game, and this is one you can only visit once. It's been a while since I've been able to show off one of these in a video, but as always, a spot like this catches my eye. Even a mediocre spot is made that much more interesting just because of the fact that you can only see it once. Towards the end of the game, you're told to get on this boat and ride out to the Isle of Kings. You might have noticed it earlier off the southern shore of Mackinac. It's a small chapel with an open area in front. I imagine a wedding would go really hard here. The building itself is so regal, much nicer than the buildings of Mackinac. Heading down to the docks, I realized it's a little bit later in the day than it was in the city. The sunset is much more orange, very peaceful. My favorite spot on this island is down this path. It's a bit of a walk, but at the end is a gazebo. And this isn't overlooking a beautiful sunset, it's facing towards darkness. The moon is in the distance, but the sun is reflecting no light off of it. Shadows envelop the horizon. It's kind of a sad moment in the story here, so the darkness and isolation kinda play into that. It's an emotional spot. That's all I got. Thanks to CyberConnect 2 for putting this interesting little game together. And thank you for watching.